Deb Krier, the co-host of Cancer and Comedy, where our mission is to heal cancer-impactful people through hope and humor, something we like to call turning the grim into a grin. But today on Cancer and Comedy, we're going to be talking about attitude, specifically 3 exercises you can do to change your attitude to help you cope with cancer. Now, here's the host of the Cancer and Comedy podcast, Dr. Brad Miller.
Hey, thank you, Deb. What a joy and a pleasure and a privilege it is to be with you and all of our lifter-uppers as we look to kind of change the tune of how people deal with cancer and the bad things that happen with cancer. We like to call it changing the grim of cancer to the grin of a fulfilled, happy life, no matter what's going on in your life. And so we are here on the Cancer and Comedy podcast to help people to cope with hope. And we hope that people will get connected with our community at cancerandcomedy.com/follow. If you do, good things are going to happen. I tell you what, if you contact with us on the contact page at cancerandcomedy.com/follow, I can guarantee you that either myself or Deb or maybe both of us are going to reach out to you and make a connection with you. So, but hey, Deb, one of the things we love to do here is tell dumb dad jokes, and I know some people get tired of them. Some people. I'm talking about my adult children get tired of them. They're tired of them. But I'm going to lay a couple on you here. Are you ready for these?
I'm ready.
How are false teeth like stars?
I have no idea.
They come out at night.
Cute.
One more. We're in the October, Halloween coming around not before too long. How can you tell a vampire has a cold?
I have no idea.
She starts coughing.
That's a groaner.
Oh, boy.
Well, following our conversation, don't say that I'm not warning you. We are going to have another one of Dr. Brad's bad jokes of the day. But then we will have our very important Faith It or Break It segment. Well, as we mentioned, we would love for you to be part of our Cancer and Comedy community, where together we crush cancer with a message of how to cope with hope and humor. Please follow us at cancerandcomedy.com/follow.
Indeed, we would love for you to do just that. And today, let's talk a little bit about attitude. You ever heard the phrase, hey, man, you need an attitude adjustment, or you got a bad attitude about that. You need to get that together. Well, I think when it comes to cancer, when bad things happen to us, that is like a kick in the rear, isn't it? It's like a splash of cold water in the face. It gets your attention. It can also kind of knock you back on your heels a little bit. And a tendency can be, when that happens, is to kind of be a little sour, be a little upset about it, to have kind of a bad attitude about it. And so what we try to do here a lot is to kind of change that around, at least give us some tools to do that. And so let me ask you, first of all, Deb, has there been a time in your life when I know you basically as an upbeat person, has there been a time in your life when you've kind of needed to have a little bit of a change from a bad attitude to something a little bit better to make things go better for you? Has there been that time?
Always. And I think, one of the things that we need to remember is it is perfectly normal and natural to be a little gloom and doomy, or a lot gloom and doomy, right?
Sure.
This is something that is very serious. And, people have said that I'm Pollyanna and all of these. And, what I tell them is, well, I just don't tell people when I'm not feeling most upbeat and things like that. But I still remember many years ago, I worked for an oncologist, absolutely fabulous man. And he would tell his new patients, what you think about what's going to happen is 99% of what will happen. If you think you're going to die, you will die. If you think you're going to survive, then you will survive. Now, some people might not have survived very long, but it was all in their attitude as to what their quality of life was during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And see, it's kind of a turn to that phrase, if you think things are bad or think things are good, you're right. I've heard kind of a turn of that phrase that way. And so one of the things that we really try to work on here is, we need to accept that when bad things happen, it is okay and perfectly legit to be a little bit upset and depressed, anything else about it. But we have choices in this matter about how we carry through. And the idea here, I think, is to not get stuck, get stuck in a bad place, because that's not going to serve you or your family or anyone else well, whatever your circumstances are, whether you're the cancer victim or part of the family or a caretaker or anything of that nature. And so what we try to do here is provide tools and methodologies to help people to cope with hope, is like what we say. And so I know you do spend a lot of time researching and reading and think about this type of thing, and I do too. And the book I've been reading quite a bit here recently is a book called The Healing Power of Humor by Alan Klein. And there's a couple concepts in his book I wanted to chat with us, for us to chat about here today, and I think they're going to apply to our lifter-uppers. And he has this whole section here about attitude, and the subtitle is Whistle a Happy Tune. But he has a section here about an autobiography in 5 chapters. It's just a couple paragraphs long, but I want to read it to you and get your reaction to this. And it's just the title of it, an autobiography in 5 chapters. Chapter 1, I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2, I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. But it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3, I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I fall in. It's a habit. But my eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5, I walk down a different street.
I love that.
Let me just let you react to that for a minute.
Well, I mean, there's several things in there. The first is, are we taking responsibility for our own actions? I think that's probably one of the big things. And, and then we really can think, how can we do this differently? We see something coming. How can we avoid it? And I think that's very much what he's talking about.
Yeah. I think take responsibility, and how we view things makes a difference. You can take the poor me, I'm stuck in a hole, what am I going to do? It takes forever to get out of here. Or you can kind of see another level of that is going to see the reality. I'm in a hole. I'm in a bad place. I have cancer, whatever it is. It may take a long time, but I'm going to get out of it. Or kind of the third basic phase of his 5 chapters was, I'm going to either go around it or take a whole different pathway. And so what are some ways maybe you've taken a little different pathway than what might have been expected, either with cancer or something else in your life, where you're kind of going down one route and maybe let's try something completely different? Tell me about something like that in your life.
Well, I've never been known for taking the path that, should be taken. I like Frost's comment about, take a different fork in the path. And in fact, I have that poem on my wall about, the road less taken. And, it started with when I was very young. I am at a tail end of the baby boomer generation, and we as women were expected to start families and, maybe have a career, but it was, the family was the most important thing. And, I went to school, I was going to become a lawyer. Now, obviously I didn't, because part of it is I thought, look, don't want to do that. But I've always kind of done the thing that people are not expecting. And, let's be honest, people expected me to die, and I took a different path and was, I remember very distinctly thinking, wait a minute, I get to vote in this. I didn't accept what the doctor said, and I took a different path.
So, and here you are. You're still doing it, aren't you?
Actually, I'm a ghost. So sorry. As you mentioned, we're aiming towards Halloween, but
wow.
But yeah.
You're a very friendly, joyful ghost. I'll say it that way. If you are, if you,
yeah, yeah.
you know, I think I would just echo that sentiment that when you take a path less traveled, to quote Frost there, or to reference that, it is a bit scary. It's a bit different, and it is certainly not the path others have taken, but it is certainly one that, although it has some painful moments, although it has some, moments of just being scared, most time it pays off, doesn't it? It pays off in some regard. It gives us some sense of fulfillment, a bit of adventure, and that type of thing. I'm going to go off a little bit of a tangent here. I remember several years ago, our family took a big vacation in Arizona, and we were going from Phoenix up to Sedona, Arizona, which is, I don't know, an hour or two drive. And I saw on the map said something effective shortcut on the map. And so I took that road, but we'd rented, my family, which in that case was two of my three kids were with us, and they were small. But we'd rented like a Dodge Challenger, just a regular kind of sort of a sedan car. It turned out the shortcut ended up being a road that was designed for four-wheel drive vehicles that go through a canyon to get to Sedona, Arizona. Anyhow, we almost had wrecked several times, and it was crazy, and we were in with all these. The only other vehicles out there were these four-wheel drive big old Jeep things. And we're in this little sedan, a Dodge Challenger, and people are looking at us like we're crazy, which we were, and my kids, But my point is, none of us will ever forget that trip that we
Adventure.
We had a big adventure that way. And our attitude. Here's the thing: we choose what pathway to take, don't we? We choose,
right?
And I think that's something for us to keep in mind. And one of the stories that Klein tells in his book, and I've used it as a kind of a preacher story many times, is about the two brothers. One was an optimist, and one was a pessimist. And if Christmas was rolling around, and both the boys wanted a pony, and their parents kind of did a bad trick on them. They said, go out, Christmas Day, go out and look in the barn. And they went out to the barn, and they plugged the doors open. Then there was nothing there at the barn but an enormous pile of horse manure. And the pessimistic brother ran back in the house in tears. Oh, you did this, So the optimistic one got a shovel and started digging through the horse manure and said, hey, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere. There's got to be a... So how we look at it makes a big difference. And so let's go be specific and kind of granular for a minute. What were some of the ways that both of us had very serious cancer diagnosis, life-threatening cancer diagnosis. In my case, I went through surgery and came out pretty good shape and not a lot of discomfort. You had a much tougher road to travel and everything like that. But tell me a time where you were able to very intentionally kind of change the story in your cancer journey from something that was kind of pessimistic or bad to something at least with some optimistic view of it.
Right. Well, one of the things that Alan talks about is kind of that visualization.
Yeah.
And I have no idea where this has come from, but in my head, I see myself as a little 97-year-old woman.
Okay.
Like, I have no idea where. I mean, it's just, and it's been there for quite some time. And so, and this also goes with his concept of treasure mapping, is I see her. And so what I'm doing is I have to get to her, and to be her. And like I said, I have no idea. I have no idea why 97. I mean, it's just this very weird thing, but it is very distinct in my brain that I will be a little 97-year-old woman at some point.
And you're not going to get to 97 if you stay stuck at wherever you were at and just kind of gave up, that kind of thing. Well, I think that leads us into one of the things that Klein does talk about in his book is some practical things people can do to help to change their attitude. Kind of the idea here is that changing your attitude is a choice that we make. It doesn't. usually doesn't happen to us. Somebody can't force you to change your attitude. But he gives us 3 tools in his book about, he calls them learn to laugh exercises. And we've touched on them a little bit here. One's called treasure mapping, which is treasure mapping is where you basically actually have a picture or maybe even a photograph or a drawing of somewhere you want to be. You kind of mentioned visualization of the 97-year-old woman, but the pot of gold or the pirate map to get to the treasure there. And I've done some of that, where you actually, I'll give you a couple of examples in my mind. I keep in my office, and if people do see this on YouTube someday, they can see I have a balloon theme in my life, and I have a little balloon behind me because my granddaughters gave me a balloon as a gift right after, when I was diagnosed with cancer and when I was in the hospital and so on. And so that balloon is a tangible physical symbol of life for me.
Right.
And that's a good thing. I know other people have had vision boards where they put on a board, like a new house or, speaking before a group of people and things like that. But I think something tangible can be helpful to us. Do you think maybe something tangible can be helpful either in your life or maybe something done for you? It could be a card. It could be anything. Do you think something tangible can be helpful here?
I did create a vision board based on all of this. And took magazines and cut pictures out and things like that. And some of the things say, I will be healthy. I am in charge, things like that. And I think it just is kind of, one of those things where it does help reinforce that. And Alan talks about, maybe you do that, or maybe you put little stickies on your mirror. We've all seen lots of things like that where people have said, for affirmations, put it on your mirror so that you see it first thing in the morning, whatever it is, to kind of remind yourself on those days where you're thinking today is not a fun day, that you can get forward and go forward and get out of it.
Yeah, and you mentioned there kind of one of the second things that Klein talks about, which is affirmations, which is kind of, not kind of, it is either saying out loud or reading or some other affirming something to be better. And this one things that I like to teach, and my own things I like to teach, is to develop, I call it your cancer coping credo, your statement of faith, your statement of life that says, in my case, I have this posted in my office here, and I just say that cancer will not define me. I will be refined by it, and I will live a full and complete life, however long I live. And so and I say that or read that virtually every day. And I think it's important to have an affirmation. And you mentioned Post-it notes and things like that. Is there anything that you kind of have as a particular affirmation that is important to you, either a saying or a phrase that might be important to you?
So we do have a Facebook group for trying not to die.live. And I have daily affirmations that are posted every day. And so today, as we're recording this, my daily affirmation says, I will continue showing gratitude to my body. And it's interesting the feedback that I get from people when these are posted, and there's a different one for every day. And then I'll be honest, I start over, they recycle. The one that's on the first day of the month will always be on the first day of the month. But they're, I really like them because, things like I visualize myself free from illness. I move my body and I strengthen it. I am free from pain. And sometimes when I see these, I think, well, not today, but tomorrow is another day. I am here in the South, so as Scarlett would say, tomorrow is another day. Right?
Love it. Well, I think it's so important that we have those type of things, and then that leads us. We all these 3 exercises he talks about kind of overlap some, but visualization is the third one. Treasure mapping is the first one, and affirmations the second. Visualization is the third one. And certainly you mentioned, about your visualization of being a little 97-year-old little 97-year-old woman who has a lot to live for, even then. So, and that's a great visualization. And in my case, my visualization was very, very vivid. And I think if you can make your visualization vivid, it can be the case that and I've shared about it before, but I was thinking about it recently because I will be spending some time with my two granddaughters pretty soon. My two granddaughters, when I was diagnosed with cancer, was right around Christmas time of 2022. And anyhow, we got together with our two granddaughters at that time who were ages 4 and 2, and at a McDonald's restaurant, and just did the grandpa and grandma thing with our granddaughters a couple days after Christmas, after I'd been diagnosed with pretty serious cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And so my little granddaughters had no clue, no idea about what was the drama going on with me and their grandmother, and kind of things were going on in our heads.
Mm-hmm.
They're just having fun. They're having happy meals, and they're playing in the ball pit and all that kind of stuff, and having a great time. No idea. But I could look at them, Deb, as they were sitting there, playing their little toys and eating their chicken McNuggets and things. I could try to visualize them not as little girls of 4 and 2, but as young women of 21 and 19.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, daggone, I'm going to do whatever I can to see them that way, because I want to see them in that light. So I think visualization, however we do it, and there are different ways of doing this.
Mm-hmm.
You can get quiet and breathe deep. There's breathing exercises. There's all meditative practices, journaling, all kinds of things. But I do think visualization is an important thing that we can do. Can you say more about that from your perspective?
To me, it's kind of like goal setting. Mm-hmm. And I think of it from a business perspective.
Yes.
Where, you might say, I want to be successful. Well, that's really hard to define. And so your goal needs to be, I will make X number of dollars by X date, and because if you don't set those specific goals and visualizations, how do you know when you get there?
Yeah.
And so, you were very specific with your granddaughters. You wanted to see them at a certain age. And I think that's one of the things that so many people do is they visualize very specific. They visualize seeing somebody graduate from high school, from college. They visualize holding grandchildren, all of those things. And that does give you something to be going towards. It's kind of like the GPS on our car, right? Or on our phones. We don't just get in and say, take us somewhere. We have to tell it where to take us.
That's right.
Before it can actually go. Now, you can be a little general, but you've got to give it some parameters. Because if you don't, how do you know when you get there?
Yeah, I think it's well said. And the more vivid and more specific you can make it, at least from my perspective, I think that helps us to have something really kind of goes back a little bit to the treasure mapping thing, gives us some kind of tangible to go for. It's up to really specific.
As a minister, I'm a perfect thing to visualize would be, visualizing serving as the officiant at your granddaughter's wedding.
Oh, yeah. I thought
the baptism of the great grandchildren, all of those things. I mean, those are very specific things that you can be aiming toward.
I will say this, just you happen to mention that, and I was able to baptize my youngest grandchild. I have two grandchildren, and right now they are 7 and 5, 7 or almost 7 and 4 is what they are right now. I guess I should memorize that. I get in trouble with my daughter. But I know very specifically after I was diagnosed with cancer that I really, really wanted to have the baptism of my youngest granddaughter. And so we were able to do that because that was important to me and became important to my daughter and her husband. And you're right, to have those moments to look forward to. And I guess let's just be clear with our lifter-uppers, our audience. Hey, find your own thing, right? Find whatever it is for you. Find your treasure map. Try have your story. Have something big to look forward to. Affirm that you got some good things in your life, and then visualize where you want to go. And we're here to help, aren't we? We're here to help here in our community.
We are. And we want to emphasize too, it doesn't have to be something years in the future. Maybe it's tomorrow. And so just as long as we're kind of forward thinking and forward looking.
Well, no, it just in some cases, I know for some folks, I'll include even myself in this, because sometimes that visualization is how to, after surgery, how to get out of bed and take some steps to the bathroom,
Right.
whatever,
Oh,
that's, you got to visualize just
yeah.
that there. So
Hmm.
some great things here. Well, appreciate you sharing here, the Deb. You always have some great stories to tell. I love that about you. You always have some great stories to tell, and I think it's helpful to our audience as we build our community here at cancercomedy.com. Thank you.